2 Samuel chapter 24 is where we continue. We might as well jump into that in the last half hour. We left off, if you remember, there had been prophecy spoken to David after he took another man's wife, impregnated her, had the guy knocked off. That would be Bathsheba. And Uriah, the husband, he's killed on the battlefield. And then Nathan, he says, with a parable, he brings David to his senses. And then he says, and the Lord has also said, you got problems that are going to be in your house, even the sword. A sword is going to be in your household, in your genes, your gene pool here to come, your offspring, and it's not going to leave your house. And we start to see the beginning of that.
Where are we?
2 Samuel. 2 Samuel chapter 14 is
That's
where
what
we're
I
picking up.
thought. Okay.
I'm sorry, 14, yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
So in the earlier couple of chapters, 12, 13, we see some weird stuff happening. We see his firstborn son, Amnon, whose name, by the way, means faithful in Hebrew. And he's got this thing for Tamar. Her name actually in Hebrew is date palm. That's what a Tamar is. It's a date palm. Now, Tamar, that would be the equivalent today. Even in English, that's not a pretty name. Oh, this is date palm. It would be more like Rose. Like today, Rose. This is Rose. Well, named for a rose, but the name itself, it's a nice name. It's a pretty name. So Tamar, he's got this thing for her. It's all lust. It's his half-sister. And as you know how it goes, he arranges to get alone with her. He rapes her. And but she is the full sister of Absalom. Now, we call him Absalom. That's the translation. But Absolom. And you might say Absolom is the guy. His name, by the way, if it sounds a little familiar, especially the Solom part, like Solomon, the other son that David names, okay, means peace. Well, his name, Solomon, is Solom in Hebrew. Absolom. Ours says Absalom. It's Absolom, father of peace. Remember, anytime you see you're seeing the word father. Abba is where we get rabbi. Ravi is a spiritual father, is the rabbi. So, Absolom is father of peace, or father is peace. That's what his name means. And what we've got is, word comes to David that Amnon is dead. Absalom arranged for it. He had some people kill him, his half-brother, for raping his full sister. And he runs away because he's thinking, Dad's going to probably want to kill me. And so he's gone. And David is grieving. Now, if you remember, David does nothing. He did nothing to correct Amnon. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And again, I think I said, chances are he kind of might feel guilty for punishing his son for doing something that he did, actually a worse version of. His immoral act, I don't know. Did he have compassion on his son? He just maybe felt like he was not in the place to, how can I punish you for something, I did this kind of crime similar, even worse. How can I punish my son? Either way, he should have done something. So because he didn't, I believe that's why Absalom said, I'm going to take it in my own hands. Dad hasn't done a thing. He hasn't protected his daughter, Tamar, my sister. Well, I'm going to do it. And he knocks off his half-brother. Well, Joab, the general, David's military general, is looking at David, who's despondent. David is missing not only, his now dead son, Amnon, he's now missing his missing son, Absalom. And he's just, Where's my son? Hasn't seen him now for a long time. And so Joab, he has a plan. And let me see, 7:32. Can we do this? Because boy, there is just stuff to do. One second, I want to check here. Again, we are at a place in Scripture that is so interesting that part of me would even want to. Would you mind if I summarize some spots so we can move to what I think are critical things for us tonight? Okay. So Joab, chapter 14, verse 1 through 24. Scan it. And I'm going to tell you what he does. He sends to a city called Tekoa for a woman who's a good actress. And he brings her and says, what I want you to do is to come and behave like a woman who has been mourning many days for somebody who died. And I want you to go to the king and speak to him this. And then he gives her the script, which is, oh, help king, verse 5. Oh, help me. I'm so upset. And the king's going to ask, what's wrong? And she says, alas, I'm a widow. My husband's dead. I had served 2 sons. They fought with one another in the field. And there was no one to separate them as they were fighting. One struck the other and killed him. And now the whole family has risen against your servant. And they say, give up the man who struck his brother so that we may kill him for the life of the brother who he murdered. Even if we destroy the heir as well. Thus, they would quench my one remaining ember and leave to my husband neither name nor remnant on the face of the earth. And what she's doing is describing in a parable David's story. And David listens, and then the king said to the woman, go to your house, and I will give orders concerning you. The woman of Tekoa said to the king, on me be guilt, my lord and king. On my father's house let the king and his throne be guiltless. The king said, if anyone says anything to you, bring him to me, and he shall never touch you again. Then she said, please, may the king help the Lord your God, keep the Lord your God in mind, so that the avenger of blood may kill no one, and my son would not be destroyed. As this thing goes, she pretends, again, she's mourning over a similar situation of his. He gives her advice that he wouldn't give himself. And he finally catches on to the woman's drama, and he orders Joab to bring Absalom back home. Okay? That's finally what happens.
Who is she talking to?
She's talking to King David.
Okay.
And
so he didn't go get her.
No. Joab, the military commander, is looking at David going, buddy, just bring your family back together. Call your son back. Just let him know you love him. And instead of sitting here and just worrying, because people are hunting down Absalom to kill him, thinking, that's the right thing. And David's just frozen. And so this woman pretty much paints this picture. It's long. But he ends up, look, verse 21. He finally calls Joab. Listen, I get it. Thanks for the hint with this lady. Good acting. Here's an Oscar. And would you go get my son Absalom? Okay, bring him back. So Joab goes to get him and brings him back. Verse 25. Somebody read, please, 25 to the end.
Now in all Israel there was no one who was praised as much as Absalom for his good looks. From the sole of his foot to the crown of his head, there was no blemish in him. And when he cut the hair of his head, the end of every year, he cut it because it was heavy on him. When he cut it, he weighed the hair of his head at 200 shekels, according to the king's standard. To Absalom were born 3 sons and
That's
1
about
daughter.
5 pounds, by the way.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot of hair.
Wow.
Yeah.
To Absalom were born 3 sons and 1 daughter, whose name was Tamar. She was a woman of beautiful appearance, and Absalom dwelt 2 full years in Jerusalem, but did not see the king's face.
So stop. Okay, so he's come back. He came back, but not all the way back. David sent him back to Jerusalem, but never really saw him. He just knows he's back now and not in a faraway land. Continue.
Therefore Absalom sent for Joab to send him to the king, but he would not come to him. And when he sent again the second time, he would not come. So he said to his servant, "See, Joab's field is near mine, and he has barley there. Go and set it on fire." And Absalom's servant set the field on fire. Then Joab rose and came to Absalom's house and said to him, "Why have your servant set my field on fire?" And Absalom answered Joab, "Look, I sent to you saying, 'Come here, so I may send you to the king to say, why have I come from Geshur? It would be better for me to be there still. Now therefore, let me see the king's face. But if there is iniquity in me, let him execute me." So Joab went to the king and told him. And when he had called for Absalom, he came to the king and bowed himself on his face to the ground before the king. Then the king kissed Absalom.
All right. So 2 years passed. There's still no reconciliation between father and son. That leads to problems down the road. Twice, Absalom attempts to get Joab, the commander, to come and discuss his status with his own father that he came to talk to. But Joab wouldn't come. Finally, Absalom orders his servants to burn Joab's barley field, which was right next door. That would get his attention, which it did, right? Absalom demands that he be restored to the court or be executed as a murderer. You know, either bring me home, restore me to my position as prince, or just get it over with, you know? Capital punishment. Tell Dad just to kill me. So Joab brings word back to David. Here's how your son's really feeling. You know, you brought him home, but you still haven't fully reconciled. Okay, I want to see him. And there's this, meeting, a kiss, reconciliation, so it seems. As it continues, and I want to remind you, through the prophet Nathan, God told David that as a result of David's sin with Bathsheba, the sword would never depart from David's house, and the trouble would rise up in his own house, the rape of Tamar, the murder of Amnon, for the first installments of the judgment, because it continues. Chapter 15, verses 1 to 6, somebody?
After this, Absalom brought a chariot and horses, and he hired 50 bodyguards to run ahead of him. He got up early every morning and went out to the gate of the city. When the people brought a case to the king for judgment, Absalom would ask where in Israel they were from, and they would tell him their tribe. Then Absalom would say, "You've really got a strong case here. It's too bad the king doesn't have anyone to hear it.
Y'all paying attention?
I wish I were the judge. Then everyone could bring their cases to me for judgment, and I would give them justice." When the people tried to bow before him, Absalom wouldn't let them. Instead, he took them by the hand and kissed them. Absalom did this with everyone who came to the king for judgment, and so he stole the hearts of all the people of Israel.
Did you get that? Okay, so from the moment Absalom returns, he plots to overthrow his dad now, right? Okay. First, Absalom, he puts on a big show to impress everybody. He secures a chariot, some horses. This is the first recorded use of horses by a member of the royal family, by the way. He, in the horses compared to the mule that David used for transportation. And these horses probably look very impressive. He has 50 runners preceding Absalom as he rides through the city. Advanced PR men stirring up the crowds to give the crown prince a royal welcome. Second, he rises up early every morning. He stands at the city gate to greet all the people. Classic politician. Mm-hmm. Third, he shows a personal interest in everybody who came to the gate with court cases. Did you catch that? Then he uses flattery. And he'd always agree that the legal claim of each person lobbying him, right, was right. Oh, you're right. Oh. And then he treats them as equals. Right? So if anybody came near to bow before him, did you notice? If they came to bow before the prince, he grabbed them by the hand, raised them to their feet. And then he'd greet them with a kiss on the cheek. So the crown prince, he develops this reputation of being down to earth, just one of the common folks. Bill Clinton did that kind of thing. Sixth, Absalom, he works to discredit the king, his own father, in the eyes of his subjects by pointing out that there was just nobody present here to hear the cases on behalf of the king. It's just too bad that you really don't have anybody in your corner. What a bummer. So the implication was that King David was derelict in his duty. And after 4 years, he does this for 4 years. Think about that. Every morning, huh?
Mine says 40 years.
4.
Yeah,
Should be
mine-
just 4.
Mine says 40 also.
Yours says 40 years?
Yeah.
Mine says 4.
4. Yeah, it says that some say 40.
After 4 years, Abraham said to King Israel, that's mine.
New American
There's a footnote that some say 4.
Yeah, some say
Here
4.
we go.
Some say 40.
Depends. Septuagint, Masoretic text, Vulgate. That's the thing. That, well, you know, when you look at the translations.
I'm good with 4.
I'm going to tell you, I think you should go with 4.
Yeah, mine says as in Greek and Syrian versus Hebrew reads 40 years.
Yeah.
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 But
And then it depends which Hebrew text yours is taken from. I would go with 4.
That's
Just-
weird.
Okay. Yeah. So because there's a lot that goes on, and this happens early. It's not 4 years later because of what Absalom's about to do. So Absalom, he's ready now to launch his rebellion. You know, this kind of thing happens in churches, businesses, and the presidency as of right now. You just think of the seeds that have been sown. It's the misinformation or the disinformation campaign. What has happened to Trump for 4 years?
4 years.
For 4 years,
Yeah.
they have ripped on our president. Oh, he's this, he's that, all these lies about how terrible he is. That's what Absalom's doing. He's just sowing that disinformation. And he's turning the hearts of people. And it says he won the hearts of the people. Well, when you're constantly comparing, well, if I was your president, if I was your king, I'd be doing this. Oh boy, you know. So either way, kind of sounds familiar. Let's continue. Verses, this is a long section. Scan 7 to 37, and I'll summarize. Absalom, he chooses Hebron as the site to launch his rebellion. Hebron, by the way, it's very interesting. That is where Abraham was. Abraham he lived there for a while. He came from there, which is why he was called a Hebrew. He's from Hebron. And this is the site that he's going to launch his rebellion from. It was also where he was born. Absalom, he dispatches secret agents throughout the tribes of Israel to alert his supporters that the moment was near. I'm about ready, all right, everybody? Get everybody on my side. Time to send in BLM and Antifa. Time to release the FBI, the CIA, and all of our insiders. The deep state. The deep state. That's what he's been setting up. That's what's going on. Nothing new under the sun. Right, folks? Isn't this amazing? It's so interesting we see this tonight. He sends this signal. This trumpet signal is relayed across the land. He says, when you hear this, you know, the shofar is going, it's going to indicate, I have been declared king, verse 10. 200 of the leading citizens of Jerusalem, they were all invited to accompany the crown prince to Hebron. They had no idea that they were actually being used by Absalom to make it appear in Jerusalem that his rebellion had massive support among the national leaders. See, all the national leaders really are on my side, not David's side. I mean, that kind of thing's been happening. And right now, I'm not even sure who's really with our Trump and who's not.
Yeah.
Because of what the media is telling us. Well, all these folks are actually with Biden and Harris. I mean, even right now, I'm going, where's Pence on this? Because I'm hearing that maybe he's really for Biden. Do you get it? It's happening now. This very thing is happening in our day. Again, I'm just overwhelmed where we are in Scripture on this very night. This happens all the time here, doesn't it? Isn't this the wildest thing? It's the wildest thing. Thank you, Lord, for that. We could be anywhere in Scripture, but we're here. So a messenger arrives at David's palace with news that the hearts of the men of Israel are with Absalom. And David seems to panic, and he orders an immediate evacuation of Jerusalem, including the ark. Got to take the ark, because only we are going to handle this thing. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with Trump. I mean, I'm hearing now the 25th Amendment is going to be blah, blah, blah. They kick Trump out within the next 24 hours. by force, that literally we're going to send in the military and they're going to remove him. Is that true? I don't know. But, I mean, and I'm hearing Trump is maybe panicking a bit right now. Why? I don't know. I mean, if I was Donald Trump, I can't even believe what he's endured in the frame of mind that he's had, the courage he's had. Even the speech he gave to everybody, all the supporters today out on the mall. I mean, the guy's just, he's incredible. He's unexplainably strong and courageous. But at one point, I wonder if he's going to feel like David, where he goes, I really am alone here.
Yes.
I really have very few people with me. I really don't have any supporters anymore. Because, I mean, you think of all the communication right now, the social media that is being shut down. Our voices are being shut down. There's stuff he's not going to hear. Where's his base of support? What if he can't hear from us?
Right, because that's all it
And they're shutting down his communication to his base of support, which from the beginning has been social media because he can't trust the mass media.
What's the
Even
25th
Pence has unfriended him on Twitter.
Is that what it is?
Pretty much, yeah. Say it again?
Even Pence has unfriended him on Twitter.
Really?
Oh,
See, if you really did, I mean, that's where you go.
Take that from.
He didn't have to, they banned the account.
Manipulate.
Yeah, but again, we'll know in due time. But
I wouldn't bet on that 100%.
But it isn't interesting. What he does, he leaves 10 of his concubines to tend the palace. Again, that's a second-class wife, or sometimes just women for pleasure, okay? Side women. He never anticipated that these women would actually become pawns in Absalom's bid for power, as we're going to see. And the fulfillment of the prophecy in chapter 12, verse 11, that another man would sleep with his wives. Because what ends up happening is that Absalom, talk about disrespect. Again, the concubines are a second-class wife, they call it. And Absalom sleeps with all of his dad's concubines. And word of that purposely is sent everywhere. And it reaches David's ears. Your son sleeping with your wife. So, but that is something Nathan told David. That another man, he didn't know it would be his own son, is going to sleep with your wife. Holy cow. Okay? So, verses 30 to 37. Somebody read that, please. This is amazing.
And David went up to the ascent of the Mount of Olives and wept as he went, and his head was covered, and he walked barefoot. Then all the people who were with him each covered his head and went up weeping as they went. Now someone told David, saying, Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom. And David said, O Lord, I pray, make the counsel of Ahithophel foolishness. It happened as David was coming to the summit where God was worshipped, that behold, Hushai the Archite met him with his coat torn and dust on his head. David said to him, If you pass over with me, then you will be a burden to me. But if you return to the city and say to Absalom, I will be your servant, O king, as I have been your father's servant in time past, so I will now be your servant. Then you can thwart the counsel of Ahithophel for me. Are you not Zadok and Abiathar the priests with you there? So it shall be that whatever you hear from the king's house, you shall report to Zadok and Abiathar the priests. Behold, their 2 sons are with them there, Ahimaaz, Zadok's son, and Jonathan, Abiathar's son. And by them you shall send me everything that you hear. So Hushai, David's friend, came into the city, and Absalom came into Jerusalem.
Okay. So it's kind of like David and like a remnant of followers feeling defeated. And they're making their way up the slope. Did you notice what slope? Of the Mount of Olives, right? David, it says, is barefoot. His head is covered, and he's weeping. And his agony is even greater when he learns that his close advisor, Ahithophel, was among the conspirators. Again, tell me Pence is not. Okay. Don't know. I shouldn't say that again until anything is established, but you know that there are some close advisors to President Trump who have now, whoever they are, they're being revealed as on the other side. And don't miss the significance of this. Centuries later, on this very hill, the Mount of Olives, where the Garden of Gethsemane was located, Jesus would weep, he would pray, and he would be betrayed by his close friend Judas. Ha! Ha! On that very place. And don't forget the prophecies. Again, God spoke through Ezekiel. He says, I'm going to send another David to shepherd you. And it's going to be the Messiah. It's going to be Jesus. But he's going to have a very similar life to David. That's prophecy. You sure did. I mean, this is amazing. So, how are we doing on 10?
Keep going, keep going.
Okay. 16, 17. If you are to scan them, what I would tell you is this, is that there's various points along this exit route that David is taking as he's fleeing the city. I mean, part of me goes, I don't know what it's going to be like in D.C. overnight, and tomorrow, the next day. I mean, I wonder, are we going to see this kind of thing? A siege? Not of Trump supporters, of course, but is there going to be something there to where, I mean, if President Trump is still in D.C., apparently he still is, they're going to have to get him out of there if things get real ugly. He's going to have to exit the Capitol. And he's not going to have a huge entourage, but there's going to be certain people that will be with him. But, it's interesting. In these two chapters, as you scan it, as David is leaving, as he's literally navigating the streets of D.C., that was closed. That's got a bunch of rioters. That's got, oh my gosh, can't go down that one. Let's go that way. It's like a maze. How do you get out? As David's trying to get out, because his understanding is Absalom, again, has the upper hand. Most people are with Absalom. Most people despise David. This is what David's thinking. He's believing the press. Most people, if they could find him, they'd kill him. And I'm telling you, that's what I think President Trump is feeling right now.
And who can I trust?
Yeah, who can I trust? And as he's going, he is met along the way by both supporters and people that hate his guts. There's people who are saying, we're with you, we don't want you to leave, we want you to stay our king, and then there's these other people that hate him. We're glad you're gone, and you better leave quick, get off my property before I kill you. I mean, I can't even believe what we're reading tonight. But,
Somebody's already moved in to take your place.
yes. Yeah, somebody's already moved in. So he gets the boot. Absalom's already in the White House. Luckily, he's not going to stay there because things are going to flip. And that's going to be for next week in the 18th chapter, because there will be a civil war. Can't even believe what we're reading. And my guess is that since we'll do that next week, the civil war will be about next week. Chances are, because that's what we're going to end up in the war. So, because what will happen is that David will have an army. The people that actually support him will reveal themselves. Those with Absolom will reveal themselves. And those two armies will clash. And there's no competition with David's army. That's the...
God is on his side.
That's the Steeler. Yeah. So, with that, 8 o'clock. Amazing.
I heard something.
Well, okay, should we close? Pray us out. Okay. Brian's going to pray us out.
Heavenly Father, thank you for sharing your word with us, for revealing what we kind of see going on today. Just continue to give us peace and just joy, and that no matter what happens, we know the end. And we know that someday we're going to be with you. We revel in the thought that you died for us on that cross. That the debt that we have has been paid.
Yes.
And we look for that day. We pray that it comes soon. There's something we give us to you.
Amen. Thanks. Yes, and remember everybody from Sunday, what we looked at in John 16.